Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to All Things Social Security. I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at Joy Disability. Welcome to the channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Okay, this is the Sunday Social Security Roundup, and this is going to be a twofer because after promising to get timely with them on last Sunday, I did not. So it's going to be the 2 weeks wrapped into one. It usually is, but it's just two different videos, but I'm actually doing the week that we didn't do on top of it. So this is the 11th of May, 2026 for this Social Security Roundup. Let me just double check that's the right date. Yes, it is. Okay. And on the 11th, this was a Q&A, including questions on, let's see if I can get this to open up. No, I shouldn't do that. I'm trying to do a way where I don't have to all right. So this is a Q&A segment that covered compassionate allowance cases, updated MRIs. So little tidbits on this, guys, because this is, as you know, these Q&As are from the live stream where people are asking questions. I think I have to stop this for just 1 second. Bear with me, guys. Thank you. It was making me sign in to see my list of YouTube. So I had to go get my phone, get that two-factor authentication code or something like that, and then I could get in. So my apologies. All right. So as you might know, I'm out in the Harrisburg area this week. Well, part of last week and part of next week. It's so nice out here. We've had beautiful weather. So it's just nice. It's nice to work in peace and quiet without the zoo around me. Love the zoo members, but need my break sometimes. All right. So on May 11th, it was a segment of the live stream from April 29th, actually. And this one had a mishmash of things that we talked about: compassionate allowance cases, updated MRIs, dialysis and disability came up, doctor forms and absences came up, jobs that Social Security may cite to. And again, these could be just little tiny touches on, guys. So it's not necessarily, as you know, this is like a 15 or 20-minute segment or less. How much is this one? 13 minutes. So it's the section where we touched on these. DAC evidence, as you know, DAC is disabled adult child. So that's some of the evidence problems, which I kind of mentioned quite a bit, it seems, when people ask about it, and SSI payment timing. So these were all the questions that people covered. And we went through that day. Then on the 12th, same idea, different segment. This was the 5th segment of that live stream. And the questions we talked about included, all looks like the same. One was, goodness gracious. All right, I'm getting out of line here. Yeah, I told you about 12 and I didn't tell you about 11. See, my eyes are going bad. Let's open this up again. So that was Tuesday I just talked about. So now Monday, the 11th was actually same idea, segment with multiple different touch-ons on different topics, including going back to DAC again. People with disabled children are always asking about DAC, very understandably. Disabled adult child proof before age 22, VA disability, and SSDI. And we talk a lot about how there's a difference and people need to know about it before they get perhaps very disappointed, meaning our beloved veterans. We talked about step 3 delays. Step 3 is part of the sequential evaluation process. It is the big, long step where they are actually kind of adjudicating your medical conditions and finding out your residual functional capacity, whether you meet a listing, whether you your evidence does not meet a listing. We talked about ALJ hearing comments, closed period offers, and what those are. Those are, just to let you know real quick, if you have recovered enough to go back to some sort of job, or you have gone back to some sort of job, your case does not necessarily have to be over lock, stock, and barrel. There's something called a closed period, so that if you know you were disabled, let's say you had like a year and a half of post-surgical recovery that was slower than expected, and then you eventually go back to work or are able to do some sort of work according to your medical records, you could still fight for a closed period and get at least the back benefits for that period that you were, minus the 5 months usually of the waiting period. We talked about date last insured denials, big thing of mine, date last insured. And again, more disabled adult child basics. That was the 11th, and we talked about the 12th. On the 13th was the full live stream from the 29th. For anyone who wanted to watch the whole kit and caboodle with the versions cut out, all the ums, the ahs, the scrollings, that kind of business is carved out, makes it a little shorter. On the 14th, yeah, it looks like we had two. Really getting sloppy too one day. All right. So on the first one that came out was the 6th section from 429, and we discussed SSI and DAC after a parent's death. So that would be for, well, it was a young person at one point when they became disabled, where there might be SSI but no DAC, and then 30 years later there could be DAC. So it's really important to pay attention to the young years, even if the person can't get DAC then, even if they can't get SSI then because they have some money, someone left them money or something. Kind of a good thing to prepare for if you became disabled before 22, or you're a parent of somebody who you believe might fit the bill for being disabled under the age of 22, but doesn't have a work history for which to get their own SSD. We talked about the proof of disability before age 22, 22, age 22, online content income, and SGA. You know how a lot of giggers will do like online sales. It's not a no-no. You just have to be very careful that you stay within the rules, because unless SSI is more complicated, because every income you have coming in is going to presumably be counted in some way to detract from your others, and you do not want to end up with an overpayment or lose your SSI altogether because you earn too much. However, for those on SSDI, it is completely doable. You just got to really be well documented and always be able to show what you did and did not do. We talked about age 50 versus age 55 disability rules. That would be the medical vocational rules, the grids, also known as. We talked about transferable skills and focus problems. And hint, hint, having focus problems and concentration problems, which is probably almost everyone I've ever represented after they become disabled, one way or another, whether it's anxiety or the lack of focus that occurs during the periods of pain during the day, when pain inches up a little too high to have clear focus, that can actually really help your case if you're over 50. And I would also say, well, it has to do with the grids, but one of the problems is people don't do anything about it. They don't get any medical confirmation of an ongoing durational nature. So we talk about that probably a little bit here, but also in other videos and later on. And the other thing we touched on in this was hearing preparation and final Q&A. I guess we were getting towards the end there. All right. So that was the 14th. Also the 14th, we put out belatedly. The Sundays have all been belated, right? I've had a lot going on, as you know. But that Thursday, the 14th, I think it was Thursday, we put out the Sundays Social Security Roundup. Friday, of course, Friday Fraud Law Review was about, oh yeah, a Massachusetts fraud. And I made a joke in a prior week about why are we always talking about Massachusetts, but that seems to be the ones succeeding in getting busted. So this one was a big leader in a SNAP and welfare fraud scheme who pled guilty. I forget how much. Oh gosh, it was a lot of money. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's just too much of that. Someone was making a comment recently, and I heard someone who kind of has an eye on finances and the fraud that's kind of evidencing itself when it's only been the tip of the iceberg, actually starting to try to find it. Because as we know, in years past, nobody really gave a hoot. We can ask ourselves why. But someone was saying, and I don't know if it would be this much, but I wouldn't be surprised. They're suggesting that if you combine the state frauds, and we've had states like Minnesota that's been really caught up in what is such an extreme amount of fraud, and California has a big, huge problem, particularly when the Medicare fraud has come out, the fake hospice, the people that don't even know they've been put on hospice because they're fine and they're collecting hospice monies under their name. They were talking about potentially $1 trillion each and every year in this kind of fraud. When you take all the fraud from all 50 states and the fraud in the federal government, that's the federal programs. So state monies with the states combined with federal monies, which is usually, well, a couple federal programs like Social Security Disability and SSI. We know that happens. That's why they're really strict on trying to make sure it doesn't. But also federal monies go to the states for the states to handle responsibly. And the level of irresponsibility that's gone on, there has been some talk about it maybe broaching $1 trillion. That's a guesstimate when it hasn't all been caught yet. But if we're getting a few billion here, a few billion here, a few billion there, all you need is 1,000 billions and you got $1 trillion. I mean, it doesn't take that much. So divide that by 50 states, it's a lot. But I could see it potentially adds up to $1 trillion. And imagine if we solved that, we could get rid of our deficit really fast without pain to the needy or the working people. And I always say when there's a will, there's a way. People are strong, they're innovative, it could be done. There's just got to be a will. Okay, we jumped right up to, yes, Miss Saturday. I think Sunday was the 17th. Yeah, and that was the 17th that we didn't have a Sunday Social Security Roundup, which is why I'm bumping all these in here today. But I did get out a pre-recorded, and this was another segment from trying to do this on multiple screens, guys. It was the first beginning of a new live stream replay, and I'm just trying to figure out which date it was. It was probably, yeah, from May 6th. So we're kind of catching up there. It's been a bit of a backlog in getting some of these out just due to major other things going on, client case-wise and project-wise. So this particular one was the first section episode 1 from the May 6, 2026 live stream, which, as you know, comes out every Wednesday. You're all welcome to join and ask questions at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This one we talked about amended onset dates, prior ALJ denials, remote DLI cases, date last insured. And if you don't know what ALJ is, that's administrative law judge, hearing evidence deadlines, RFC forms before a hearing, that's residual functional capacity forms. And remember, 99% of the time, the things that we mention here are because someone asked something about these topics, okay? I don't generally make a standalone out of, while we're in a live stream. Occasionally I'll mention something, but usually everything stems off of someone's question. We have SGA, substantial gainful activity, and the wrong earnings report. That can happen. And that's something you definitely want to pay attention to. It could mean you're getting a reduced benefit if you get a benefit. It could also mean you're not going to be able to file, or it could mean, well, if the wrong earnings goes in your favor, it's kind of like, what do we say? Impairment related work expenses was the last thing we talked about. That's also known as IRWEs, impairment related work expenses. They can be used to bring your earnings, if it's a hair over or a little bit over SGA, or a lot, depending on what your IRWEs are, under SGA, so you can file and prove that you weren't able to do SGA work. So that was that day. What was that? The 17th. And then on the 18th, so that would be Monday, came out the Social Security Roundup for that week. So it was a day late. It wasn't 4 days late. And today's is going to be on the right day. It's just a couple hours late. I had to go run and do some things. On the 19th, all right, this one was, I wanted to share this because I read a doctor letter, and the doctor was really trying to help out the patient. And I think everything the doctor said about the patient is 100% true. It's not my client. This was related to a non-client concern consult. So we had gone through the letter. I gave all of my legal analysis on the letter, and it had to do with, and I go through this kind of in detail in this video, all the things that you don't want to see in a doctor letter, because despite the doctor wanting to push and advocate for his patient, there were things that he said that had nothing to do with his patient's condition, but it was like more of a venting thing, because the frustration with the SSA for not even already figuring out his patient is disabled. So there's specific things in here, and in the end, you may ask the doctor, hey, do you think we could, tailor this and take that part out, this part out, whatever. It doesn't have to do with the medical opinion. It just has, I get it. But all you want that letter for is for the medical opinion on the patient's condition. You start getting into other things, it starts to make it look like you don't have the goods for the patient. So you're going to try to bang it home with a iron fist elsewhere, like morals and someone deserves and this and that. And the law does not go into who deserves. It doesn't make judgment calls like that. All right. So that was May 19th. And then, of course, another one went out on May 19th. It was another segment. Yeah, the scheduling has gone really wonky. So this one was about a few different things. Let's get to it. I'm just opening it up in another tab so I can read it but not lose my table of contents, because then I have to try to go back and then I have to scroll down to where I was. So this seems to be better. So we're talking about the 19th. Yes, the second one on the 19th. Concerned, it was the second episode of the May 6th live stream, and the questions that we touched on, thanks to the viewers, was congressional SDI requests. So that would be also known as a congressional inquiry. Another chat about finding representation. Some people have a very hard time getting representation, and there's a variety of reasons, usually legitimate, and it's not a reflection on the client or on the client would be. Reconsideration stuck at step 3. We talked about that, prior segment, we had talked about the step 3 delays. So I guess it came up again here. We discussed a little about police officer injury claim, doctor RFC forms, residual functional capacity, treating source records, which are ultra important. If I may give a big hint, treating source records. You need to be treating robustly, vigorously, aggressively for not just the thing that bothers you the most. And then nerves before a hearing. Everyone's got them. All right. That was what, the 9th? Was that still the 19th? Yeah. And the 20th? I don't even know what day we're on. What day of the month? What are we going up to? If we started at the 11th. All right. So the 20th was again another segment of questions from viewers, and they included phone hearings versus video hearings, vocational expert hypotheticals, long COVID fatigue evidence, tough one, congressional inquiry details, some more of that, SSA filing date errors, cervical spine fusions, we touched on, and function limits before hearing. I think I should say functional limits before hearing. So that was on, what do we say, the 20th? On the 21st, we had, nope, not that one. That's still unlisted for whatever reason. The first of a 2-parter about obesity. Now, a viewer had asked if I could go over 90, I think it's 98-2, 92-8. What's the number? It's a Social Security ruling, guys. Yeah, 19-2. I said 98, didn't I? So that would be 2019 it came out. But it was a new Social Security ruling about new at the time about obesity and how it is not a listing, but how Social Security cannot ignore it. We discuss how the SSA evaluates obesity under Social Security ruling 19-2P. We discussed why BMI alone does not prove disability, even if you have a huge BMI. We discussed how obesity can affect RFC, endurance, so residual functional capacity, your endurance and work-related limits, and how obesity combines with knee, hip, sleep apnea, fatigue, skin and veins, and mobility issues. And that's how you get it in and get it to make everything accurately show how worse it is than just the knee problem or just the fatigue problem. You put on the obesity on top of that, you have a stronger argument that those joints or conditions are even more limiting than they would have been but for the obesity. And then the last section is what medical evidence helps show functional limitations. Touched on that. Have no idea how long on each one. I think really short, my guess, because it's only 11 minutes long. I try to keep them short because I have to assume people can't, who wants to focus that long? 22nd was the Friday again. All right, the Friday. Oh my gosh, do I have to keep going? I don't know if I redid things, guys. Friday fraud law review. This one was, oops, I blew it again. Forgive. Hopefully I'll be pulling these blanks out. Friday fraud law review on that date was about a Nevada woman. Oh, we got away from Massachusetts, who was accused of stealing her dead grandmother's Social Security benefits for many years. I said accused there, so I'm guessing she was indicted. I think I can see that she was indicted, but not yet convicted. So we don't share her name. It's not like you can't find it anyway, but I'm not going to do that. And then we had on the 24th, something about the DDS and work history reports. This was the full live stream from May 20th. So now we're catching up finally. This one included many, many topics. This one was 2.5 hours, guys. So this is the replay. It's cut down to 2.5. It was probably more. Why the DDS may not send you a work history report to fill out. Past relevant work under the 5-year rule, which is the newer rule, a couple years old, which changed from the 15-year rule, which was a biggest gift to Social Security claimants I've ever seen. Grid rules for claimants over 50. We reviewed that a little bit. As you know, I do have videos strictly on that I just made for that particular topic because grid rules are so important. Failed work attempts and self-employment, how that can be used for you, when it can be used for you, consultative exams and consultative exam preparation. And I will say I also have a playlist on that. Consultative examinations. SSDI, date last insured, which is my, obsession, and the mistakes that can be made with regard to that, and SSDI and workers' compensation offsets. The 80% rule, for instance, anyone who has a workers' comp claim while they have an SSD claim and or before it, but related to the same injuries, it's really, really important that you know about this 80% rule because you need to know what you might not be getting as a result of it, where that offset might happen. It doesn't happen to everybody. So you really need to pay attention because I don't want you counting on money because you're disabled and you know you're going to win, which let's say you are, and then finding that all those back benefits are not yours. And going forward, you're going to have it's a nightmare. All righty. Then we had the obesity video, which was 2 parts because it was kind of long. The second part came out in May 25th, how obesity can help your disability case. On the 26th, we had, one of the multiple things we talked about, it was part of a segment from a live stream, was, I see here part of it had to do with which cases are harder for lawyers to take. But what else did we have? So the kind of cases that lawyers might decline, young claimants and SSDI, and those are the ones that really kind of break my heart. Not that I don't feel tremendous empathy for all disability when it takes you out of what you want to do and your ability to work full time. But when it's a young person, it's maybe because I'm a mom. I don't know. I don't think it's because I'm a mom though, because any adult can say the same thing, mom or not, right? Parent or not. Remote DLI cases, as always, when a denial does not mean that you are done. ALJ hearing preparation, social media surveillance, and I have another video coming out, a standalone that I did with regard to social media because I felt like it had to be updated. Not updated, just a reminder. Work credits and DLI strategy. Then we had, what am I going on to the 27th, guys? Sorry, the obesity one was a 3-parter. We must have kept them super short. So the third part of that came out on May 28th. Nope, May 27th. On May 28th, that's just the other day, we had, my goodness, pressing these buttons. This was about overpayments, why it can be hard to find a lawyer and what to do about it. So this was the specific standalone that I did when someone was asking me about this. So in this particular video, which is a good 20 minutes long, but it's all just one topic, and it's the overpayments and getting a lawyer, why overpayment cases are hard to place with an attorney, how SSA representative fees usually work, which helps explain why continuing benefits during appeal can affect the attorney payment and therefore whether an attorney will take your case, why overpayment cases often require heavy document review. And I will say that ad nauseum heavy document review. When prepared consultations or retainers may help you to get an attorney if that's what you're wanting. So obviously that would depend on how big the overpayment is, right? Would it be worth paying a lawyer or not? So that was that day. And I am not sure. Did we have another one before it was 28th? All right. So 29th was this past Friday, and I didn't get a Friday for law review out or anything for Red Friday. And I apologize so much. I actually had to leave town and drive. So everything got kind of waylaid, including a couple phone calls I'm supposed to be engaging in, which I'm going to do as soon as I get off here. That was the 29th. The 30th, which was yesterday. Oops, Saturday. This was the full live stream replay of May 6th, which I think we had all the breakouts earlier. So this is just a full live stream coming out. If someone just wants to bang through it, have it on their background, listen to things, I thoroughly encourage it. It would definitely help the channel anyway. And you never know when you hear something that's going to pique your interest. And I should add, I know I talk fast. It's the way it is. You can on YouTube slow down your speed. YouTube offers that because they know many of us talk fast. So, and everyone has different preferences. Sometimes they want it really slow. Sometimes some people talk so slow, people speed it up. Obviously, that's not my problem. Mine is the opposite. So we talked about amended onset dates, big thing, hearing deadlines, residual functional capacity forms, SGA errors, that's substantial gainful activity errors, congressional inquiries. And remember, to sum up, we've heard this before, right? Fatigue and brain fog, and social media risks. And I don't think it's out yet, but I do have a social media, that update that I was talking about. I did do it. It just hasn't gotten into the queue to go out yet. All right. Yeehaw. I think we are caught up anyway. So my apologies for none for last week. And, you know, I will try to get them out on Sundays. Sundays are turning out to be extremely busy, not work-wise, and then trying to squeeze in some other things. So as you know, I'm usually doing some kind of work on a Sunday with regard to clients, and sometimes a little bit on here if something I want to get out before Monday, or, you know, get it done before Monday because my week is going to be crowded. So anyway, I hope you guys all had a great couple of weeks. I hope to see everyone at the live stream on Wednesday. That's this coming Wednesday, which would be, is it the 4th? June 4th, can believe we're in June. And it is 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right on the channel. And the more you can watch the 12 p.m. pre-recorded, the more helpful it is to the channel and getting some of the people on board that are not going to be able to find an attorney otherwise. So we appreciate that support. They appreciate that support. And it is growing nicely. So that is good. It just means there's more available to do more pro bono, because the support that this channel is contributing towards that and towards the expenses of doing that. So much appreciated, guys. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you are finding peace and meaning in your days, despite the struggles you might be going through. And I hope that you have a great week coming forward and feel good. Your health, your case, everything goes as you wish. All right. Thanks for being here. Bye.